Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie, and today I'm delighted to be joined by 6 excellent customer experience analysts once again to run through all the latest news from the space. Yes, today I'm delighted to be joined by Zeus Kerravala, Principal Analyst at ZK Research, Liz Miller, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, Rebecca Wetteman, CEO and Principal Analyst at Valoir, Michael Fauscette, Founder, CEO and Chief Analyst at Arion Research, Simon Harrison, founder and CEO of Actionary, and Finbarr Begley, the Senior Research Analyst at Cavell Group. Whew. All right, it's great to have you all join me, and let's get right on into the news. And I do want to start with ServiceNow. It's been a busy start to the year for ServiceNow. Actually, they also acquired CueIn earlier this week, and that came after ServiceNow announced its intention to hire up to 3,000 employees to support its AI journey. And also in the customer service space over the past couple of years, we're seeing more and more of them, thanks primarily to its CSM product. So let's talk about whether CX leaders should start taking even more notice of ServiceNow in 2025. And I don't know, Liz, maybe if you want to start on this one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, ServiceNow is absolutely someplace everyone's going to be looking. They themselves call themselves the platform of platforms. So what CX leaders are looking at is not so much going to be that traditional kind of suite of tools that's going to run your contact center, the suite of tools that's going to run your service desk. It's really about where everything connects and where everything can start to connect the dots across the enterprise. So with their acquisition and with their intention to hire so many people, this is about them hitting the gas, right? They wanted to go really hard into that agentic generative AI space. They've done it with their pickup of CueIn. They are looking at people to be able to look at how AI connects and how it's integrated across all of the different areas of work that ServiceNow is looking to impact. I think the challenge with ServiceNow is it is not cheap, right? This is not like an easy platform to put in. This is not something like where, when we have conversations where we talk about Salesforce, for example, we're like, oh, anyone can put this in. You've got small companies, you got large enterprises. This is just so simple. ServiceNow doesn't fall into that simple category, but it's also not simplistic. This is a very interesting place if you want to connect all of those points of service and engagement. It's a really interesting place to be able to center all of those tools and all of the data that can now connect across these agentic processes. So if you're really looking to have, let's say, a broader ESM solution, if you're looking to really connect service in all of its incarnations, not just, gosh, I wish all of my call centers connected, but I wish it's all connected back into the business, ServiceNow is definitely someplace you're looking.
Yeah, I actually think they're absolutely one to watch, and they've built more and more of that capability that they were used, for back-end service. But really, how hard is that to pivot to front-end service? In fact, in a lot of the Wall Street discussions I have about who might buy 5.9 or who might buy 8x8, things like that, ServiceNow is always the vendor that seems to bubble to the top because, I think the ship has sailed on Zoom doing that. They built their own. All the UCaaS vendors have built their own. But ServiceNow, I mean, this wouldn't be a very hard pivot for them to do. Liz, your point on them being expensive, yes, that's true. But if you've already got it installed, right,
Bingo.
being able to take it and make it customer facing isn't really that heavy a lift. They're very well liked by their customers. I am a little concerned that they're going to become the next CA or Splunk or something like that, where once they get so well embedded, they start raising prices and they get more and more difficult to work with. They haven't gone down that path yet, but the level of customer sat out of ServiceNow customers is really high. So I don't really think that would be a big stretch, Charlie, for them to take their product and make it customer facing.
I want to go back to something Liz said for a second about platform. And I think it's something that's going to be really important to watch for ServiceNow and other folks moving forward as we look at this AI space. One of the reasons ServiceNow is hiring a lot of people is not just to sell this stuff, but to implement it. And so for all the platform players that are on the spectrum between DIY and turn it on and it works, they're going to have to think about the resources it takes to actually get customers successful there. And I think part of ServiceNow's greater platform, greater complexity, they need to build more things out of the box to link these pieces together, but they're also going to need people in the short term with the expertise to help customers pull these together, because giving folks a bunch of AI tools and telling them to put them together has not been a winning strategy so far.
I have to say my first reaction when I read the headline, though, was, 2 weeks after Benioff says 2,000, McDermott says 3,000. I don't know. does seem like a little bit of one up.
Do I hear 4,000?
Exactly. That's
Microsoft in with the win.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, they are an interesting company, and obviously, strong bones back from IT service management out, and they've been growing really well. I mean, certainly good numbers they've been putting up. I think it's, Rebecca, your point is one of those most important ones, though. Agentic is really hot, but companies just haven't caught up to where the vendors are right now. And so having people that can help get them from legacy to some form of autonomous agent, I mean, this is a huge change. It's a huge transition, and you're going to need a lot of help, both from company and downstream from service partners too. So I think from that perspective, it made a lot of sense.
Vendors haven't caught up to where vendors say they are right
Well,
now.
I mean, that's a whole different discussion when you want to talk about slideware versus platformware.
I will say the interest in agentic AI, though, I was at the NRF show, was through the roof. I stopped by the NVIDIA booth, and I mean, Chanel stopped in, Louis Vuitton stopped in, Ralph Lauren stopped in. I mean, they rolled out that retail agentic agent, the blueprint, did a demo what you could do, and the number of brands running through there was just incredible. So he who solves that problem and actually gets something that works first, I think there's a pretty big pot of gold on the back end of that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and you're definitely seeing from every industry, every sector, every function starting to get involved in it in different ways. So,
and to go beyond the folks that have deep pockets and deep wells of expertise to actually be able to do this as an SMB or even kind of upper mid-market is going to be really important.
Yeah, it is. And from an AI perspective over the last couple of years, the biggest growth's been in small business. So that's, that you can see the obvious opportunity when you talk about autonomous agents and you talk about small business, but at the same time, the change in the distance there is even worse for them than it is in a company with a lot more resources. So there's definitely going to be some pain this year as companies try to get this in.
The ServiceNow interesting bit is also, I mean, I think we, especially us in this group, like our little tribe right here on this show, we've been hearing the connection. Like everyone's like, oh, we're going to connect CX and EX and it's going to be awesome. But a lot of times what that actually means in the rollout, especially in contact center with agents, with service, has really been more about like, we're going to take these loosely formed processes and bots that help our agents talk to our customers. It's a fairly, like we kind of know where those connections are. I think the interesting thing about ServiceNow is that they are looking at enterprise-wide employee experience, enterprise-wide capacity to deliver different customer experiences through those service motions. So when they talk about being that platform of platforms, it really is about, can you take your field service motion and connect that in with your contact center motion and connect that in with your sales, with your ERP, with all, with finance, with these much larger processes and systems that for those of us who are looking at contact center tools, we're kind of like, is there an API for that? As opposed to ServiceNow that's really stitching a lot of that together. So I think this is a much bigger conversation around CX and real CX, real EX, and that's where ServiceNow is playing. So I think that, to Zeus's point, if you're a CX leader and you've loosely heard anyone in IT talking about their ServiceNow implementation, now's the time to start saying, okay, well, how do you have it implemented? How is it really helping you? What types of processes are you looking at? What do you mean it's found that? And start to replicate that and start to make those connections into your existing systems. Because remember, I want to say a couple shows ago, we were all sitting here talking about how ServiceNow has crafted partnerships with folks like Five9, folks like Genesis, folks like, so they have really strong partnerships. They are co-selling solutions and products with all of these CCaaS vendors. And now they're coming out, bolstering AI. Comes a different, it does become a different ballgame when you're talking about connecting all those platforms together.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that I think even in your article, Charlie, you talk about the quote of the move will support the company's bid to become the ultimate AI platform for business, right? You got Genesis, confidentially filing for US IPO as an AI company. Verint's new trademark, AI business outcomes now. AI business outcomes now. It's streamlined its messaging to be the platform being built to increase CX automation specifically. And obviously Microsoft has now got its new AI engineering division, Core AI platform and tools, I think it's called. There's this, I feel what's interesting is when we've talked about the power of these CRM, CEC vendors in the contact center space, Service Cloud is about 8.5 billion in revenue. That's contact center seats. There's this, I feel like there's this, we're going to push with, puffing our chests about the benefits of AI and more threaten the value that's coming out of CCaaS vendors as CCaaS vendors sell without these partnerships. It's quite fascinating how this is all shaking out. And it's all CRM, customer engagement center vendors that we're talking about today, and they're in these headlines. They're taking over the contact center world potentially here.
But a lot of it comes back to who has the richest source of data, who has the most value, truth, and trust at the customer side.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the CCaaS vendors, it is the CRM. Yeah. They have all the data, they collect it, they operate across all the business, all the agents and guys at the company have access to it and update it. And also, I'm always reading about these, but the large processes put in place to make sure that data stays up to date at the company. Your manager's on you. When did you last update all your contacts in the CRM? So then who starts to win on that AI front? And it'll end up with an API integration between the two that shares data between the two platforms, right? But at this stage, certainly the ones who have all the data are definitely putting themselves into a position.
Finbarr, I think you bring up an interesting point, but I think some of this depends too. The CRM vendors don't do voice, right? And I don't think they have any interest in running a global voice network. And so it'll be interesting to see with agentic AI how much more we pivot back to voice, right? If voice really becomes a good usable channel. I think it was Patrick Dennis, the CEO of Avaya, who said voice is the interface we're all born with. I think the reason we haven't used it historically is because frankly it doesn't work very well.
Hard.
with agentic AI, if I could just talk to my app about changing a flight or booking a hotel, right? And voice becomes a really good, discoverable analytic data channel which we can run AI on. You could see some scales tipping back, which actually might force the hand of the CRM vendors to go buy, one of those companies.
But here's the funny thing. And Finbarr, I love that you brought this up, and I love that it's the CRM vendors you brought up, and Zeus, I totally agree with you. But here's the funny thing to listen for. Listen for how many times ServiceNow gets called a CRM. I have heard it dozens of times over just the past several months. If you had asked me a year ago how many times I heard people call ServiceNow a CRM, I'd have been like, I'm sorry, come a little closer so I can smack you in the head. What? What do you mean it's a CRM? What are you talking about? But more and more people, and when I dig into it, when I ask customers, why did you just call ServiceNow your CRM? It's not because it is a CRM with the classic little tools and the classic little spaces. It's because it's where they believe all of their usable AI-ready transactional data exists.
Yeah. Well, I think too, you're seeing this disruption in the apps world already starting to erode around different edges, and I think over time, agentic AI particularly and voice, all these things become a new way to interact with apps, and the more the platform can extend across all those things, and the better they're going to do. So, for me, it seems like a logical place. Platform, Salesforce doing the same thing, Agentforce. You got Microsoft making moves there. All the major CRM vendors are making moves there. So it just seems like a logical place to focus.
It's probably Gartner's fault, Liz. The CRM Customer Engagement Center Magic Quadrant, which is CRM for customer service, has got ServiceNow now as a challenger, for leadership. So it's and that's clearly what that's their ambition too, right?
Oh, those new Magic Quadrants are a whole separate convo, Simon.
Yeah, well, we can talk about them forever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting in so much as that is all about what the buyers are calling up these guys and asking about, saying, I'm talking to ServiceNow about a customer service solution, CRM application. But it's interesting how the quote, I think, again, in your article, Charlie, about how those systems of record, they're good, but they were built in silos. Yeah. Seeing that as a problem, this kind of bimodal, this varying stage of life in terms of the technology in these enterprises creates an opportunity to do something clever with platform. And I feel like AI is the way to just get in everywhere now, isn't it? And this ultimate AI, company ambition, it seems to be just becoming everyone's ambition, even in different, across the sectors.
Yeah. So your question, Simon's a good one though. Who owns that data? Like everyone wants to be the single source of data, right? Yeah. And right now, CX data lives in a ton of different silos, everything from first mouse click all the way through product retirement. And I think it's the goal of everybody to be the single data source, but not everybody can. So.
Okay, so lots of really great stuff there, but I do want to move the conversation on and talk a little bit about Verint, which recently acquired, last year acquired 4 AI providers under the radar, including Finbarr and Cogito. And these moves were in an effort to boost its specialized bot strategy. And that strategy, given all the recent hype around agentic AI, it seems quite far ahead of its time. So it'll be great to hear all of your thoughts on Verint's acquisition spree and what we can maybe expect from the company in 2025. But I don't know, Zeus, maybe if you could kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, like ServiceNow, Verint's another company that's danced around the CCaaS space for a while. They've got all the components except voice. Personally, I think they have too many bots. I think it's a little confusing to have that many bots, but they have a bot for every day of the year, I guess. But I think what they were missing though was some of the AI tools that could take the data from the bots and be able to make it actionable data, right? So I think initially they were relying on their partners to do that, but this gives them a lot more control over that roadmap. Cogito's a good company, right? And so I think. I've been waiting for them to actually, they had that open CCaaS strategy and things like that. They're the other one that I look at that might actually take a dive into buying, one of the CCaaS providers and adding the voice to it and becoming complete. The challenge they have is they have so many partnerships with so many CCaaS vendors that if they were to buy one, they'd hurt a lot of those partnerships. But their big partner, one of the big partners is Avaya, and you could actually look at that as, they're on their way out. So maybe now would make sense for them to make that, jump in and, try and go it alone a little more. So, but I like the moves, Charlie, because I do think that the bots allow them to collect a lot of data, and now the AI acquisitions allow them to make that data actionable, which they couldn't do before.
Cogito is an interesting one. It's about empowering advisors as they're engaging. It's that kind of AI-fueled coaching and support there. And I remember when Copilot was first described by Microsoft, it was, for me, the immediate thought was, wow, if you've got the ability to say to a pilot after that engagement, how did I do in that call? What could I have done better? What were the splits like in terms of me speaking versus them? Yeah. And get kind of live coaching and seeing how that could completely disrupt the whole sort of WEM space. So it seems it's analogous to that when I think about the way that these guys are looking at, potentially trying to go up against that from a Verint perspective. That would be a smart move.
I think I would say that for Verint, the interesting thing that Verint knows probably better than most in the industry, is work itself, right? And so, Simon, you bring up the WEM space. Verint still is clearly one of the leaders and has been a longtime thought leader in quite literally the work in the contact center, right? How people have to move those processes along. And I think that's why they have so many bots. I think that when people, I agree, Zeus, like there's a bot for everything. It's like literally a bot for everything, everything. But I think it's because there are so many of these individual independent processes that for a very long time have been treated like individual pieces of thread. And if you look at how other vendors manage these agentic processes and have mined which processes should be automated, what are those processes that quite frankly should be ambient They should just be there and present for the employee to engage with and to engage through.
Yeah.
We look at it as if, oh, I can just take that one piece of thread and it's just going to be really simple to automate and I can do that. Whereas I think what Verint has realized and understood is that it's about all of these threads being braided and working together, right? It's about being able to understand how work flows throughout this process and throughout any of these complex CS processes, and bringing those skills and bringing all of those processes and bringing the data together. I think the interesting strategy that they took was they called all of that a bot. It was almost like they went to an oversimplification of the language so that the people actually having to implement this didn't have the very first thought of, oh my God, I can't possibly. And if we really take a hard look at the other vendors that are looking to develop and also sell these types of agentic processes, what are they all running into? They're running into a group of people saying,
but you're
I can't
starting
possibly.
you're starting to see this specialty across. If you look at a lot of the AI startups, they're getting more and more and more and more granular with the things they do. And I think that's a really logical way to help some companies understand how to lay all this out and how to play in this kind of multi-agent agentic world versus, some of the others. So to me, the strategy made sense. I guess the one thing I was kind of curious about, it seemed like they missed some marketing opportunities when they hide who they buy, but maybe that's just.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things I had Josh on my show a couple of weeks ago talking about the CX EX bot, and it's really, really interesting, but it goes back to Zeus's point about voice, right? Voice is becoming really important again.
Yeah.
And folks have recognized that, yes, I need the agentic stuff, but I also need to be able to have, for those agents that are still interacting with customers, that real-time intelligent voice scoring, sentiment analysis, quality analysis at scale to ensure that if the human actually gets through to a human, they have a human interaction that has consistent quality. I think, Mike, you're right about the marketing opportunity here. Obviously, acquisitions are a way to accelerate and pick up pieces. I think we're going to see a lot more of the larger vendors look at what are those little pearls that I can pick up to add to my overall portfolio, particularly as folks are looking at changes in valuations and changes in runways and the cost of managing AI development on
Well, and it's always been the practice to buy features, right? And I mean, you look at Finola, another company that I think a really good feature set, but it's so specific, right? Callback, and it's very good, but how do you make that as a standalone product? But now, as a part of Verint, makes tons of sense to me.
Yeah, and I also think that the thing to remember in all of this is that we're really looking to turn voice into usable, actionable, real-time data. And we've talked about that for years, right?
Yes.
Like that conversation of customer voice and who brings customer voice into that and customer listening posts. And I mean, like, these are conversations that feel as old as time. But with generative AI and through these agentic processes, all of a sudden we can start to analyze voice and look at sentiment beyond little like 3 colored happy faces, right? We can actually look at we can establish granular processes where it's a product conversation that is constantly mining for features and functions that are letting customers down, right? That can be something that a product system or an ERP driven system can push into these voice conversations now to extract that real time verbatim around what was the failure, as opposed to customer service giving the quarterly PowerPoint that says, our customers hate this feature. Well, okay, why? Agentic gives us that opportunity to push the question of why into voice in a way that's really meaningful for real-time feedback to product teams. Like this is where we make all of this real. And I think that's why you're starting to see, to Zeus's point, people being like, but wait a minute, what happens to those calls? When was the last time that got levied up to the CIO, right? Where they can really do something about it now. And I think that's a very important turning point, because I'm actually going to take it back to Finbarr's earlier comment about the CRM. CRM was that destination because it was the only destination that everyone knew existed, right? But now all of a sudden people are like, wait a minute, What do you mean you have a bot that extracts sentiment and all I have to do is create another layer to pull a different question out? That feels easy. Let's try it.
Well, to Liz, the thing underneath, the tools underneath, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but language models are starting to evolve into all sorts of specialties. Like there's a behaviorally focused language model right now. Well, think about an LBM, a large behavior model, and the ability to take all that conversational data and analyze it in a way you could have never done before, and really learn how, what kind of outcomes do you see from what types of behaviors, and then continuously improve your interactions. I think that's a huge opportunity.
Understanding digital body language that also includes voice, that becomes super interesting.
And understanding it from every customer interaction, not just the ones who are willing to self-report on some voice of the customer survey afterward.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. And also, to an extent, removing the risk of your agents misdiagnosing or misreporting in their summaries, right? Because you take it a step beyond that and you're analyzing the entire live transcript with a better understanding of sentiment than the person themselves who is answering the call, because you can correlate that conversation with all of your other customer conversations to understand the general sentiment to your products and your company, and then how that ties back into, rather than relying on the agent saying this summary is accurate, that customer was happy.
Awesome point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. I mean, imagine being able to take your CPQ output of what the customer actually configured, quoted, and then bought, and then correlating that to that customer service and those customer calls. You can do that now. We only we used to theorize about it. Like, imagine a day that we can do all this. Like, we don't need RPA to figure out that that's what we've been wanting to do for the past 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah. We've been trying to keep, the whole, when it comes to voice, obviously it's that now I need to call someone. I've reached a point where I'm not getting what I want. I can't self-serve. I'm not getting what I wanted to out of this digital engagement. And I need to speak to someone. I need someone to own this. And we've never really reached parity in engaging in any other way to what we are trying to achieve in voice. Now, with the agentic capabilities, we're starting to say, hold on a minute, we can be very, very clever with trying to solve that challenge in the voice channel itself rather than elsewhere. So it's almost like we're going back to, let's see if we can do what we were trying to do originally in voice. But we went to chat and other ways to do it because we couldn't do it before.
I mean, I may be biased because of Cavell's history with UC, and that's been our speciality for many years. But voice isn't going anywhere. It's really not.
It never was, is my point.
It never was.
No.
When I went to talk, I was speaking to some random futurist. There's loads of futurists; they're really great. But he was like, smart glasses.
But this one was random.
No. But the point is, we were having a chat in a pub, and he was like, smart glasses didn't work. No one wants their field of vision to be covered with advertising. But the thing that everyone is wearing now is earbuds. And it's the easiest thing to say, and people didn't like it for a while, but because it was bad. Now that it's getting smarter, saying, hey, Siri, call my garage and schedule an appointment for next week for the problem with my car is the most natural process in customer service, right?
But combining what Liz was saying about workflow, that combining you went to the NICE summit, or you look across the industry, the vendors are not just talking about workflow, they're talking about self-healing workflow. It's being able to figure out, that's not quite right, let's improve it. So you combine that with the power of your agentic AI, and now suddenly you've got these very cool new capabilities to do exactly what you just said.
I want to go back to this whole Finbarr likes to talk to futurists in pubs. Yeah. I think that's really the best way to do that.
Three futurists walk into a pub.
Exactly. What happens? Does it is one of them an agent? I really think that's the way to go. So kudos for that, Finbarr.
My point earlier, though, Simon, wasn't really that it would become you defer to voice when your chat's not working. I think with agentic AI and natural language, I think voice actually becomes the primary interface. I think there's a lot of things, like when you change your flight today, you go in, you look up your flight. If I could just ask my app, hey, I'm thinking to change my flight tomorrow. What do you have between 1 and 4? I'm talking to a person. I think that actually makes voice
because to double down on that, it doesn't matter what the company wants to receive the data as, if they want it in text or SMS or social media post. All that really matters is what I say on my end. Can I not just speak to my phone? And then if the company needs it to be texted to them, let it text it to them. If they need it to be live chat.
Yeah, let the phone.
Just let them do it. And as the consumer, I'm just going, hey, can you fix this problem for me? And then,
But the systems also have to retain that intelligence that
Yeah.
we've been pushing into contact center for those traditional voice, I'm talking to an agent conversations that are able to say, this person is speaking with urgency. This person sounds happy. Because you also have to be able to mine that from when you're just talking to something in your phone. Because to Zeus's point, it's a, hey, I'm sitting here. Can I go ahead and get this new flight changed? Versus I'm running through the airport, get me a new flight. Like there's still that human interface of urgency. And I think voice, the hardest thing for voice has been we've needed a massive duration of conversation to be able to accurately synthesize the sentiment. Now we have to start looking at that moment when I ask my phone, hey, I'm out of milk. I need it now. Or add this to a shopping list. We have to be able to take a really short snippet of voice and be able to hit that same level of precision that we did with a massive duration of talking. And so I think that voice becomes the goal as opposed to what we've all been working on for all of our careers, which has been talking.
I think the misnomer is voice is a preferred channel. It's not. It's just the thing that I need to do to get the thing done. And I think if we can get things done, to your point, Zeus, in these up-leveled versions of what we've been trying to do with other channels using voice, then we're getting to have our cake and eat it, obviously.
And to tie it back to Verint, just for a second, they're exactly the sort of company that will take an industry like healthcare, build a bot that analyzes just healthcare-specific language, shove it in front of all the GP practices of the south of England, and then correctly triage. And you need those companies who are solely dedicated to being like, I need a bot for this vertical that's going to do this and solve this business case. And that's where they fit in so well. And I mean, why they have so many partners. But they're going to be kind of critical in this sort of adventure in the future.
Okay, so lots of really great stuff there again. But let's now finish off by talking Microsoft. It's making a big push for the contact center this year, developing 2 of its first 10 autonomous AI agents for its Dynamics 365 contact center. It's also offering a free 30-day trial for that solution, and it's doing much more overall to hype up its CCaaS platform. Finbarr, maybe I'll start with you on this one. What sort of impact do you expect those efforts to have on Microsoft's presence in the CCaaS space in 2025?
Just growth and focus. I mean, you don't start offering free trials to anyone, even if it's dummy data, if you're not proud and happy that people are going to enjoy the platform. They just have so much power behind them. So every time they add a new feature, they get 1% of Teams users trying it, and that's quite a lot of people. So I don't know. I'm very optimistic on Microsoft, to be honest.
Finbarr, how's that work though? How's that work though with a customer-facing application? Because the one thing people say about Exchange and Teams and SharePoint is it's okay. Our IT department makes us use it.
It's good enough.
But just okay. I don't know if that works with customer-facing apps. In fact, if you look at a lot of large enterprises, they'll use Teams internally, but anything that's more customer-facing, they use Zoom because it's a better experience. And so, I think Microsoft does have a lot of might. They can bundle it in. They can make it part of your license. They can give it away. But at the end of the day, if it's the okay experience that we've all come to love from Microsoft, I think
that's a very good point because, as you say, Microsoft's growth in this space is tied to its trust as a customer experience platform, which it potentially hasn't earned.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, okay isn't good enough. You need the excellence, which is what all the experienced CCaaS players have been pursuing for years. But Microsoft, maybe they could go that way if they get there.
I think the other interesting thing too is you just said, Finbarr, trust, right, in the CX space. I mean, and if anything, Microsoft has lost the trust of customers in the past year with AI didn't work. And if we believe that AI and CCaaS are really intertwined and need to be for these sort of agentic benefits and experiences at this point, Microsoft really did a disservice to the market by putting stuff out there that wasn't ready for prime time, that they knew wasn't ready for prime time. And so I think, as I talk to customers who have tried to make Copilot, Azure, and some sort of integration with ChatGPT work and just never gotten to anywhere near the accuracy they would need to make it ready for prime time, I think that really hurt Microsoft. I think they have some catch up to do there, certainly from the AI space for folks that try to do real projects with it before they'll be taken seriously.
Yeah.
I think this is the tried and proven and tested Microsoft strategy that they always do, though, right? They lower the bar of entry. Initial, try it. Initial, no financial commitment, and then hope that they're going to get more and more of an expand motion within the business. They did it with Office 365. I wouldn't say it was better than the Google workplace environment. I like
definitely not anymore.
But look at the success they had, and it will be they're doing the same approach that they always do when it comes to contact center: free trials, access points, and then expand.
Simon, the difference is, and you know this from having built at MQ all those years,
Yeah.
is Office and Teams is purchased through the IT pro. Contact centers aren't often purchased through the IT pro.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
that's absolutely right.
does that
They're still going to try their strategy, right?
Yeah.
But I think we're talking about a couple different types and sizes of customers here, right? For the enterprise customer where the IT pro is buying Azure, they've been trying to get this cross Azure. I've put all my data here. Let's put these workflows in. Let's deal with the complexity at the data level and then move into the application level. That has not worked, right? There has been, it's great to have everything in Azure. You're running your workflows here. You're running your data in a far less expensive manner. You can offset things into OCI. We know that whole motion on the cloud side of things and on the data side of things. When you layer AI into that, there has been a really big struggle to have enterprise-wide AI viability actually happen at the Microsoft level. But interestingly, where AI has actually been quite successful has been at the Office level, right? To be able to say, make my Word document make sense and align with my email that goes out, or to look at those seller and that sales coaching. Like if you start to look at their selling motions where you now have live coaching that goes between your Outlook calendar, your seller's email, and the bad quote they put together for a small size business, that's smoothing out because of these AI processes. So I think when you start to look at the size and scale of the company, a free trial in something like CCaaS, where you're an Office 365 user, you've opted in for that $19 for your 5 people to have all of the co-pilot services. They're like, yeah, okay, I'll bring that on because for once my sellers stopped selling nonsense, and that's pretty cool. So I think it's about the scale of the business value you're looking to achieve. For a smaller sized business that's quickly moving into becoming or having that aspiration to be a mid-sized business, being able to have something that quickly onboards AI through 365 and is fully connected into where your people work, which is Word and Outlook, that CCaaS becomes really attractive.
It is the same motion they've been doing for years, right? I mean, they all the way back to some of those lawsuits in the 90s when they, were tricking people to use the wrong browser. I mean, it is a motion, and I'm not sure if you told me 5 years ago that I could have done a PLG motion for CCaaS, but I mean, if it works, I think you're right. It's the small company. That's the target there. You already have it. You're just extending. It just makes sense, right?
And that's where a lot of my, confidence in Microsoft carving out a little space for itself in CCaaS comes from. Is just, obviously, Cavell, we talk to a lot of the teams-focused people, the enablement-focused people. And a lot of those conversations just come down to all of my employees have adopted Teams, which is pretty good for, adoption rate, penetration rates within a company. Say 90% of the company is actually using the application that you rolled out for the intended purpose. That's pretty good. They like it. They're comfortable with it. The next step in the conversation is, what else could I do within the Microsoft ecosystem? And then you start getting, the rollout of queues, the rollout of all these other things that Microsoft are building in. And then suddenly you could have a bit of a CCaaS going on as well. It does become a bit of a natural process. Now, whether they end up completely comfortable with it's another discussion. But
this phrasing of tripling down on their AI and building this purpose-built division and bringing things together, it does sound like
it sounds good, but
it sounds like they're going to perhaps that's their way of saying, look, we're going to try and solve some of the problems that we've been having. But it will be interesting to see how it unfolds.
But it's like with everything with Microsoft. If it stops being 0.2% of their business revenue, then they'll make it work. So
Right.
You know, are they going to fix AI? They probably have to fix AI. They bought exclusive rights to nuclear power from a reactor in America to fuel their AI. So,
Right.
you know, they probably have to make it work.
Good justification.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, again, lots of really great stuff there, and I think we've covered Microsoft's entry into the CCaaS space very well. It certainly will be interesting to see what comes from them in 2025. But I think that's a great place to end today's chat. So thanks to all our expert analysts for joining me, and also thank you to everybody for watching. Bye for now.